2002, had an opportunity to go back to Vietnam. Had been there since I left in October 1967, so I didn't know what to expect. But I had an opportunity to do several things. One, see the country and meet the people and see how it happened and how they rehabilitated the land and meet some of the old soldiers. But also, I was tasked with checking out the Sharon Ann Lane Foundation clinic, the medical clinic that they were opening, and see what we could do to spur that along. So I went with the group, and we got to Vietnam, and I had these apprehensions about going through security and having these guys that looked like North Vietnamese soldiers, as I remember them. Uh, so once we got through that in process, and we started driving around the country, going back to our old base camp at Phu Loy and the whole area of operation in Lai Kay and Tay Nan and all those places, we went up along the border of Cambodia, where there used to be an underground headquarters for the South Vietnamese Viet Cong that were in the area. And they had these underground tunnels and stuff. It was like basically a headquarters. It was along the borders. And during the war, it was an area that we never really saturated or found. And now it's on display, and you can go there. But you have to have special permits, special permission, and we had to take a guide for each one of us. So we had four guides to go around this old place, and we were the only tourists. The museum and everything else. We were the only people all day long, so it wasn't a crowded place. It was interesting, but what we found interesting was afterwards when we were traveling back to the hotel, which was in Tay Ninh, and we went by this graveyard, and it had this big, huge statue made by the Russians, one of those with soldiers and everything, and it was in honor of their dead that died, the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. Unfortunately, the South Vietnamese soldiers, I don't know where they're interned. They've dug them up. They plowed them under. There's still some grave sites, but basically, the places of honor are those that fought on the winning side, like in all wars. And we went in there, and we asked to stop. I asked to stop in particular. And I said, this is a place that all of us have contributed. Our companies that we're in, our units that we're in, killed these people over a course of time. And I just thought it'd be a good gesture for us to gather together in this little tiny open temple they had there with this Buddhist statue. And I got these about 200 incense sticks, and we burned them, and I did this prayer ceremony, and we put the incense sticks in there. There was big clouds of smoke, and then we took the incense sticks that were blessed in this little temple, and we took them out and we put one on each grave as the sun was going down. Pretty soon, when it was dark, you could see these little beads of light shining on each grave. And this really moved the guys that were with us. They're these communist tour guides. They weren't expecting that. They didn't even know what to do. So next day, we got rid of them. Next day, we were back on the road, and I've been having this reoccurring dream of meeting this old farmer and his family. I pictured it in my mind. I saw it in dream for about 10 years before the event. And it was in an area where I actually got shot down at. In fact, right where I was in the field, not too far from the place I felt this was going to happen. And so we were driving down the highway, and my tour guide, a fellow veteran, Dave, he hadn't told me anything, but he said he had a surprise for me. And before he could say what it was and what he wanted to do as he's driving down the road, I said, well, you know what? I don't know what your surprise is, but that house up there down the road, I want you to stop there. I want to go there. I want to meet the farmer. And of course, his mouth opened up and goes, that's my surprise. I was going to stop by and we were going to visit this guy. He's an old Vietnamese soldier. He was a double agent. He was a South Vietnamese veterinarian in the army, taking care of their animals. And at night, in his off hours, he was out in the tunnels near his home, helping wounded VC. And I didn't know about that. And he was kind of like, how'd you know this was going to stop? But at this point in time, people that know me, that's not a big deal. So we pulled over and we went on this guy's farm, and he came out. He looked exactly like I saw him in my dream. His family came out, his wife. The guy I had to be at the time, I would say in his 70s. This was 2002, so yeah, about 70. And he just welcomed me. I mean, he gave me a big hug, and his wife gave me a hug. This is a guy that I was shot down basically on his property, not too far, I mean, practically his backyard. So he may have had a hand in some of the people that did it, but that wasn't an issue. He came in and he introduced his grandchildren and his children, and he made sure there was cold Coca-Cola. So that was a big deal. There was no electricity out there. He brought in ice especially for us, and so we all had a Coke with him. I didn't dare turn it down, and I didn't dare worry about getting sick from the ice or anything else. It was like this man's heart was such that I was going to take whatever he fed me and gave me to drink. And he fed us a beautiful lunch. And we talked about grandchildren. We talked about life. And I heard all the stories about him living in the tunnels. In fact, he was in the tunnels even back in the 50s and the early time with the French. And his father was fighting the Japanese, and he was a young man. So there was quite a history there, but no bitterness, no anger. There was nothing but love and acceptance. So we went to his house, and first thing you saw when you walked in his doorway was this beautiful statue of Buddha right in the entryway. So it gave this beautiful feng shui, this spiritual energy when you came in. And I told the man as we were leaving, I said, I've dreamt this whole thing 10 years ago. He just goes, yeah, I know. Okay. It was like me telling him that the sky was blue. He totally accepted what I was saying. But I saw the place. I knew about the meeting. I felt it 10 years before. So it was interesting to have it come to life when I was there. We left there, and we ended up at a place called Nui Bai Den, Black Virgin Mountain, which is now an amusement park of all things. And it's got temples up at the top. But when we were there touring, there was a big, huge bus of North Vietnamese veterans from the war. And they came down because this was an anniversary time, the end of the war. And they were celebrating. They were all walking all around the place with their medals and everything on. And there was this limousine, not a stretch one, kind of small limousine for Vietnam. And there was this woman in there. She was supposedly one of the highest, if not the highest, ranking women and most decorated women of the war. And that's what I was told. And I was also told that she wanted to meet me. I'm wandering around the place. So this guy come and got me and says, this woman wants to meet you. And I'm going, really? Okay. So I go over to the car and they open the door. And there's this little old lady. I have no idea her age. She looked ancient. And her teeth were all kind of yellowed and rotten. And she was chubby. And her uniform, she was still wearing an old jacket, part of her uniform. I could tell she was some kind of officer. And it was just row after row after row of medals. I mean, it was like, kind of like female Audie Murphy. And I saw that. I just was, she's a fellow warrior. We're warriors. We're not enemies. We're both following the dictates of our government or political beliefs or whatever else. But she looked at me, and I felt I needed to salute her. I mean, somebody that brave, that strong, and endured, and courage. She was one of us. She was brother or sister warrior. So I snapped a salute. And she broke down and cried. And the tears started rolling down her cheeks, and she returned a salute back to me. And then she grabbed her cane, which she had a big cane that she used to walk. And she was just sitting there with the tears rolling down her cheek. And I'm looking at her, and then right behind her vehicle, there's a bus. And this bus has got about 40 old soldiers in there that fought the war, veterans. And they got their heads out there watching this whole thing. And when they see me do my salute, everybody on the bus sticks their head out the window, and I get 40 old vets saluting me. I returned the salute. They went, and then they heard this big cheer. I thought, wow, the war is over. Old soldiers got together. There's no animosity. There's fellowship. It was very moving for me to experience that, and to see the country of Vietnam totally rebuilt. Maybe it's not the political system I like, but the bomb holes are filled in, the sandbags are gone. It's clean, it's neat. Life goes on. Trees are growing back, and so it is with veterans. Veterans do recover. There may be scars, mentally, emotionally, and physically, but you can recover, and you can go home again.